Okay. Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I've started sharing my screen. Are you able to see my screen as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's wait for everybody to come and then we'll get started. Okay. So we have 8 people in the class.
Sir, ephemeral streams means what, sir? I didn't understand about that.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So second. So ephemeral. See the word ephemeral over here simply refers to a stream that is temporary. You can say ephemeral. One word that could be a synonym is temporary. Okay, which means a stream that is not running all the time. Right? It's the opposite of the perennial stream. So in the case of the perennial stream, no matter which time of the year you look at the stream, there'll always be water running in it. An ephemeral stream is one in which you only see water certain times of the year, either in response to a rainfall event or whatever it may be. Okay, or see, naturally, if you don't have human intervention in the form of a dam and so on, right? So for instance, if you look at the Ganga is a perennial river or a perennial stream, right? But if you look at some of the rivers in southern India, even the big ones, they have become ephemeral. Okay, but it's not necessarily because of um, uh, because they don't receive rain or and so on. It may also be because there's a dam constructed which is obstructing the flow of water, or there is groundwater pumping happening which is reducing the base flow and so on. Okay, so ephemeral simply implies that a river that does not flow all the time is an ephemeral stream or an ephemeral river. And usually when we say ephemeral stream, there's also an indication that it is a small stream. Okay, for a major river, usually we don't use the word ephemeral. Okay, usually this word is used to describe small streams, usually. Okay, so this is where we left off last time. We were looking at hydrographs. We were looking at stream flow hydrographs, and I was just talking about this idea of an annual hydrograph and a storm hydrograph, right? A storm hydrograph is essentially the response of a watershed to a given rainfall event, whereas an annual hydrograph is simply recording the entire duration of 1 year, where we are noticing how the stream flow is responding throughout the year across seasons. Okay, a storm refers to a particular event, and an annual hydrograph refers to the entire year. That's the only distinction between these two. In essence, they are the same, right? So you can think of the annual hydrograph as a collection of storm hydrographs, right? Every annual hydrograph can be thought of as a collection of storm hydrograph, right? Okay, so an annual hydrograph is simply a collection of multiple storm hydrographs. That's another way of looking at it. Okay, now when you come to this storm hydrograph, the plot that you see here at the bottom, I have time on the x-axis and I have flow rate. Could be in cubic meters per second, it could be in cubic feet per second, whatever it may be, whatever the units may be. The storm hydrograph has essentially it has like 3 or 4 main components. Okay, so this first component AB, which is marked on this curve. So now don't assume that every storm hydrograph will look exactly like this. Okay, this is just a symbolic representation just to understand the various components of it. Okay, so this AB is what is called base flow recession. right? You know what recession means, right? Recession means something that's declining, right? Like we typically use the word recession more for economy and so on, but you can use it for any other phenomenon as well. So in this case, I have base flow recession, and then BC, this portion of the curve from B to capital C is called the rising limb. Okay. So the essentially the storm hydrograph consists of two limbs. One is the rising limb and the other is the falling limb. So the rising limb indicates how the runoff, or the flow generated, the stream flow generated in the watershed, at the watershed outlet, increases as a function of time, and it reaches a peak. And after it reaches the peak, it starts to come back down, and then that falls. That component of the hydrograph is called the falling limb. CD is referred to as the falling limb, and then again I have DE, which again we call it as a base flow recession component. Okay, so that's the different components of the stream flow hydrograph. And within the stream flow hydrograph, you may have base flow happening and the rest of it. So let us say I draw a line over here. Okay. Oh, sorry, badly drawn. Okay, let's say I do a better job of drawing this line. So let's say I'm connecting B to E. Okay. So the stream flow hydrograph, let me also draw the x-axis a little bit more clearly. So the x-axis is over here. Okay. So everything that falls between the x-axis and that red line that I've drawn is base flow. Okay. So the total flow is what you see, A, B, C, D, that curve that you see is the total flow that you're seeing. But the region below that red line is the component of the stream flow, which is coming from base flow. Okay, so let me just maybe shade that. So this entire component, the shaded portion, that I'm going to call it base flow. Okay, if you remember from the from yesterday's lecture, we broke up the stream flow into two components. One is the base flow and the other is the surface what?
Direct runoff.
You can either call it overland flow or excess rainfall or direct runoff. All of these different terminologies can be used. Okay, so let me just quickly go back to, right? Okay, maybe even one more slide back. Anyway, so the point is, I have these two different components. This component, the component which is above the base flow, is, you can call it direct runoff, DR. You can call it excess rainfall. Okay, you can call it overland flow. The most popular term used is direct runoff. Okay, direct runoff and excess rainfall, or rainfall excess, right, or effective rainfall, all of these different terminologies are used. Okay, direct runoff is probably the most popular terminology used. Now, okay, so let us get into the next aspect. So I've already spoken about this. The next idea that I want to talk about is separating out base flow. So you see, in the previous slide, we saw a storm hydrograph, right? Now, when I am given a storm hydrograph, one of the first things that I do is to separate out the base flow from it, right? Is to separate out from the storm hydrograph which component of it is base flow, right? If I separate that out, then I know how much is the direct runoff, right? So then there are many different ways of separating the base flow from a given storm hydrograph. Okay, so you see over here I have a so let's see this black line over here. This is my storm hydrograph. Okay, oops, sorry, it's just badly drawn, but you just let me not even try to draw it. Unnecessarily creates confusion. Okay, this, okay, maybe I'll just denote the initial portion of the, okay, this is where the base flow starts, and then it goes up. This is the rising limb, and then I have the, oops, the falling limb. Okay, and then I have base flow recession again. Okay, so now if my objective is to separate out the base flow from the storm storm hydrograph, you understand what I'm trying to do? At the outlet of the watershed, I am measuring the total stream flow in the stream. Right? When I just see water flowing down the stream, just by looking at it, I can't say that this much is base flow and the rest of it is direct runoff and so on. Right? So it's impossible to estimate which component of it is base flow and which of it is direct runoff. So therefore, there are many different ways of trying to separate out the base flow from the storm hydrograph. Okay, so I'm for the rest of the semester or for the remainder of the course, we will simply use the straight line method, which is the simplest method. You see, there's a straight line drawn over here, which is the one that I also drew in the previous slide. There's a straight line. It starts from here, okay, and it just goes all the way to here. Okay, this straight line is simply saying that everything below that is base flow, everything above that is direct runoff. Okay, so that is this first curve A. Then there is a B, which is this curve, I think, fixed base method. There are different ways of doing it. Okay, so one way of separating base flow is this straight line method. I'll not even get into the details of the other methods because we are going to be using only the straight line method. The other methods, you can see them, it's visually fairly straightforward, what is being attempted and so on. Fixed base method goes like this. Okay, fixed base method goes like this all the way down. And then, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that is fixed base method, I'm sorry. Okay, and then it goes up. And then it does that. So in this fixed base method, everything below the line that I've drawn just now, that is called base flow, and everything above that is called direct runoff. And then C is the variable slope method. That's another variation of it, which comes down like this, goes up, and then slopes down like this. And it says this is the whatever falls below this line is base flow, and whatever is above that line is direct runoff. Okay, so these are these three different methods. We will not bother with understanding the other two methods and so on. You will learn about it later on if you do a master's level course and so on, right? For the rest of the semester, we are just going to use the straight line method. Okay, there's nothing fancy about it. It's fairly straightforward, simple procedure. You just draw a base straight line and then say everything that's above it is direct runoff, everything that's below it is base flow. Okay, so when I have a storm hydrograph, I do the following. I remove base flow, or I separate base flow separation. Whatever is left, right, I can draw that as a function of time, which is the direct runoff hydrograph. Okay, when I take the storm hydrograph and subtract the base flow out of it, what I'm left with is called the direct runoff hydrograph. Is that okay? Any questions on this? Yes.
Storm is what, sir? Storm.
Okay, what is the meaning of a storm?
SURM.
Okay, what is your understanding as a, how old are you? You're 20 years old?
22 maybe.
Okay, 22. Maybe. You should at least know your age. Have you encountered the word storm ever in your life? In 22 years?
Yeah, encountered many times.
Okay, basically a rainfall event, you can call it a storm. Okay, it could be a collection of rainfall events, it could be an isolated rainfall event, or it could be part of a cyclone, it could be part of the monsoon, southwest monsoon season, right? So when I say a storm, maybe I'll use an even more general term. See, storm is a fairly commonly used word. You can just think of it as a rainfall event. Okay, that's all, nothing fancy, right? You can just think of it as, yes.
But discharge into a water body, something, some ocean.
One second. I'm your voice is breaking a little bit. Can you just say that again?
Discharge queue is there, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, where is it discharging?
It is discharging into a
From
stream
where
or
to
a
where?
river, right? So okay, so let us imagine. Okay, so now okay, so we've already discussed this before. So you have a watershed. You know what a watershed is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the watershed, typically there will be one major stream and multiple other streams which may come and join into it. Okay, so if at this outlet, this is the outlet of the watershed, here I measure Q in the river that is draining that watershed. Okay, and suppose I receive some rainfall over some X number of hours. I sit at this outlet and I continuously measure the flow rate in the stream. Okay, and then that gives me this curve which goes up like this and then comes down like that. That is what I'm calling the storm hydrograph. Okay, or the stream flow hydrograph, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so this stream flow hydrograph is telling you the response of the watershed as a function of time to that rainfall event. Okay, once I get that stream flow hydrograph or storm hydrograph, I subtract out or I separate out the base flow component of it. Okay, whatever I'm left with, I'm saying if I subtract out the base flow from this stormwater hydrograph, whatever I'm left with is the direct runoff hydrograph of this watershed for that given rainfall event. Okay, so any questions, any other questions?
So this base flow, sometimes it is possible that base flow, like from that point, it may water may get into the aquifer in this region.
Okay,
So that possibility, like if it happens, so what's gonna like something
no,
some
it
view I
is.
wanna see.
See, we are not discussing about the fact that some water may get into the aquifer. Yes, it may get into the aquifer.
Means it may be sucked back into the catchment area from the aquifer.
It may be sucked back into the catchment area by the aquifer.
Because of see, upward slope may be different from the ground level slope, like means inside the aquifer slopes might be different, so it might, this possibility is there, but
No. One second. So you're saying that a portion of this rainfall may become infiltration. Is that what you're saying? And it may get into the aquifer. Is that what you're saying?
no, that's not amazing. Means see, here you approximated base flow to be straight line.
No.
Some
For here, see how I approximate base flow. See, I've given you these three different approaches. We are just going to use the straight line method, right? Each one has its advantages. Each one has its disadvantages. Okay, the straight line method, the advantages, it's very simple. You just quickly you come up with a solution. This fixed base method, you have to do some computation. You have to compute some n, whatever it is, this capital N that you see in the plot. You just look it up in the textbook. It's nothing major, nothing very difficult. Okay, but it'll just take some extra time, some additional time. And these days, if you enter a stormwater stream flow hydrograph into software, it'll separate base flow using multiple methods and give you the answer. Remember that all of these methods are only an estimate of the base flow. Nobody knows exactly what the base flow is. Okay, there are three different methods of estimating it. I'm saying for now, for this semester, for this course, we will just go with the straight line method because it's simple and we can quickly get the thing done. Okay, nobody is disagreeing that there may be some storms or there may be some hydrographs where the base flow may not be the straight line. It may be some other shape. That is why you have these other methods, which will try to take into account the fact that the base flow itself may change as a function of time because of this rainfall, right? When I draw the straight line, I'm saying base flow is not changing as a function of time. In the other two methods, I'm saying base flow is also a function of time, and you have to take that into account and then compute the direct runoff, right? I'm not disagreeing with that. It can happen. It may happen depending on the duration of the rainfall event, depending on the kind of watershed we are looking at, depending on the soil characteristics, so many other things, depending on the size of the watershed, right? If you take all of those factors into account, this base flow itself may not be a steady process. It may be varying in time. And if you do want to take that into account, you have these other two methods. You can look it up in the textbook. It's fairly simple, nothing very, very difficult. Okay. Of course, there may be variability. I'm not disagreeing with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going on to the next slide. Okay, so now we are going to try to solve a problem. Any other questions? Okay, let's just try to solve this problem. It's a fairly straightforward, very typical kind of problem. Okay, so let's just read through it. Rainfall of magnitude 3.8 centimeters and 2.8 centimeters occurring on 2 consecutive 4-hour durations on a catchment of area so and so produce the following hydrograph of flow at the outlet of the catchment. Right? So you see, when you read the statement, it has got so much information. It is telling you the magnitude of rainfall during 2 consecutive 4-hour durations. Okay, so over 8 hours, some 3.8 plus 2.8, how much is that? 6.6. 6.6 centimeters of rainfall has been received over 8 hours in these 2 4-hour durations, and the area of the catchment is given to you, and this produces a hydrograph at the outlet of this is the hydrograph. Okay, the question is estimate the rainfall excess and the phi index. Okay, now the word that is used here is rainfall excess. What does this mean? Rainfall excess is the same as direct runoff, right? So please note that this terminology rainfall excess means the same as excess rainfall, which is the same as effective rainfall. All of these things mean the same thing, which is the same as direct runoff. Okay, do not get confused by all of these terminologies. And then of course, phi index, we've already encountered it. Okay, so then when you look at the rainfall, the observed flow at the outlet, you have flow as a function of time, and time starts before rainfall, -6, time from start of rainfall. So 6 hours before rainfall started, the observed flow was 6 cubic meters per second. When rainfall started, 0, the observed flow was so and so. And then it gives you the flow as a function of time, 6 hours later, 12 hours later, 18 hours later, and so on, all the way to 66 hours. Okay. So what would you say? So now if I were to plot this as a function of time, okay, so I have time, hours, cubic meters per second. It starts with 6, 5, and then 13, 26, 21, whatever it is, 16, 12, 9, 7, right? So it looks something like this. If you draw it on a graph, it may look something like this. Now, given this information, can anybody tell me what value of base flow we can assign to this? Let me call somebody. Okay. Deepak, please unmute yourself. Deepak. Given this stream flow hydrograph, can you tell us what the value of base flow that we can use, assuming base flow is constant throughout time? What value can we use? Can you make a guess? I see that you're unmuted, but I'm not able to see your, okay, but you have sent a chat. Let me see that. Okay, so he says his microphone is discharged. All right, thanks, Deepak. I'll call somebody else. Maybe you can enter your answer in the chat. Let me try to read that quickly. Let's not waste too much time. Why don't you enter your answer in the chat? No answer is wrong. I mean, of course, you can't enter 100, but 5. Okay, so Deepak says, yeah, I've already, you've answered. Oh, somebody else has answered. I'm sorry. Yeah, Deepak. So my question is, what value of base flow can you assume in this, for this problem, where the observed flow ranges from 4.5 to 26? What value of base flow can you assume? Yeah, he's replying back on the chat. Corresponding to time 0. Okay, so you're saying we should take base flow from time 0, whatever the flow is at time 0, we should take that as the base flow. Okay. Yeah, that happens to be 5 cubic meters per second. But there's no necessity that you have to take the value corresponding to time t equal to 0. In this problem, it so happens to be 5, which is what somebody else also answered, which is fine. I don't think it matters. Okay. It could be time 0, it could be time -6 also. Okay, that really doesn't matter. Okay, so we can assume base flow equal to 5 cubic meters per second constant. Oops. So we can assume base flow equal to 5 cubic meters per second. So I'm going to just solve this problem. Let's just go ahead to the next slide. Okay. So I'm going to assume a constant base flow throughout the entire duration of the hydrograph of 5 cubic meters per second, right? So now I have got my observed base stream flow, and I have assumed a certain value of base flow. Okay. So can I not find out what the direct runoff is? Right? That's all I've done. I've just simply taken this observed base flow and subtracted it out. 6 minus 5, 1, 5 minus 5, 0, 13 minus 5, and so on all the way down. After time t equal to 54 hours, my observed stream flow is going below base flow. Okay, so I can't say direct runoff is negative, so I just leave it blank. Okay, so I say my direct runoff starts at time t equal to 0 at 0 cubic meters per second, and then goes to 8, 21, 16, and so on, and comes back down to 0 by time t equal to 48 hours. Okay, so this is my direct runoff hydrograph. Is that okay? What we have done? If you assume 4.5 also, no problem. There's nothing wrong with assuming 4.5. Okay, what it will mean is it will just make my hydrograph a little bit longer. Okay, instead of stopping at 48 hours, my direct runoff will stop at 60 hours. Right, that's all. That's the only difference that it will make to this particular problem. You can assume it as 4.5, not an issue. All right. Okay. So now, but what was the question? Let's just go back to the question. The question was estimate the rainfall excess and the fee index. Okay. So the question was estimate the direct runoff. So what units do we want this answer in? If the question is estimate the excess rainfall, what units are we looking for?
Centimeters.
Centimeters. And what about fee index? What units are we looking for fee index? In case you remember the units, or you remember
Per hour.
centimeters per hour, right? So this excess rainfall, whatever we are looking for, we are expecting an answer in centimeters. Okay. And fee index, we're expecting an answer in centimeters per hour. So if you remember the fee index equation, it looks something like this. RD equal to P minus phi into delta T, something like that. Where P is the total rainfall or the total precipitation, and phi times, okay, actually not even delta T, it should be phi times T suffix E. Okay, which is the time of effective rainfall, but that's okay. We'll just leave it at phi times delta T. Okay. So in this equation, RD, which is the excess rainfall, will have units of centimeters. Your total precipitation will have units of centimeters. Phi times delta T should also have units of centimeters. Only then your equation will be homogeneous. So the phi index will naturally have units of centimeters per hour multiplied by hour. So that will give you centimeters. So you're expecting an answer in centimeters. Okay. So, but we have direct runoff in cubic meters per second. Now, how do I convert this cubic meters per second to an answer in centimeters? Anybody has an idea?
Divide by area.
Okay, if I divide cubic meters per second by area, I'll get meters per second. Assuming the area is in meter square, I'll get meters per second. I'll not get meters. Now, okay, so let me So this direct runoff, can I draw a direct runoff hydrograph for this? I'll have time on the x-axis, and then I'll have direct runoff cubic meters per second on the y-axis. Here I'll have hours on the x-axis, time in hours. At time t equal to 0, what was the direct runoff? 0. At time t equal to 6 hours, direct runoff was 8. At time t equal to 12, it was 21. Okay, it may not be to scale, forgive me for that. And then at time t equal to 18, it became 16. Then it became 11. Then it became 4. Then it became 2. And then it became 0. Something like that. Okay. So that is the direct runoff hydrograph. So at every 6-hour interval, I have the, okay, I might have drawn it incorrectly. Don't worry about that, but now focus on the message. Okay. So now this direct runoff hydrograph, on the x-axis I have cubic meters per second. On the y-axis, on the x-axis I have hours. On the y-axis I have cubic meters per second. All right. So I want an answer in units of length, centimeter, meter, millimeter, whatever it is. What do I do?
Find the area under this graph.
Area under this graph will give me units of, assuming I convert
Meter
hours to
cube.
seconds, it will give me meter cube. It will give me a volume, right? So you simply compute the area under this graph. Okay. From 0 to, what will it be? From 0 to 48 hours. From 0 to 48 hours, I have the area under the curve. That gives me the runoff volume generated by this rainfall. Right? Once I have the direct runoff volume, I divide it by the area of the watershed, which is provided in the previous. So the area of the catchment is given 27 kilometers square. You use that, and I'm so sorry. You use that information and come up with the excess rainfall or the direct runoff in units of centimeters or meters or millimeters, whatever it may be. Okay. Then once you have that, then you can use the equation to estimate your phi index. Okay. So let me just write down the answers. I'm not going to solve it. You know how to compute the area under this area of the direct runoff hydrograph. Let me write that. Area of direct runoff hydrograph will be, see, remember you have to convert everything to appropriate units. So this hours on the x-axis must be converted to seconds. So that's relatively easy to do. And then you multiply it by the ordinates and so on. You know how to compute the area. You can approximate this first area as a triangle, the next one as a trapezoid, and so on all the way to the end. So you will get the area of the direct runoff hydrograph, which comes out to be, I'll just write down the answer, 1.49 into 10 power 6 cubic meters. Okay. So my neighbor is just knocking something. Okay. So the volume of I'm so sorry. Okay. So the volume of runoff generated is 1.49 into 10 power 6 cubic meters. Okay. To convert this into excess rainfall, what do? I simply divide it by the area, 1.49 into 10 power 6 cubic meters, divided by the area, which was 27 kilometers square, right? It's 27 into 10 power 6 meters square. I get an answer of, I'll write the answer in centimeters. I get an answer of 5.52 centimeters. So the excess rainfall, so the first part of the problem has been solved. So I received 3.8 plus 2.8 centimeters of rainfall, right? So I've received 6.6 centimeters of rainfall, which has generated 5.52 centimeters of excess rainfall. Or in other words, it has generated 5.52 centimeters of direct runoff. Okay, out of 6.6, 5.52 has become direct runoff. Okay, so now I can very easily compute my Phi index, how do I do that? RD equal to P minus phi into delta T. Yeah, some renovation happening and they're just knocking away. So RD equal to P minus phi into delta T. Okay. So P is given in the problem 6.6 centimeters. RD, you have just now solved it, 5.52 centimeters runoff depth, right? Depth of runoff or depth of direct runoff or excess rainfall, all these different terminologies. Please do not be confused by all of these different terminologies. Excess rainfall is the same as effective rainfall, which is the same as rainfall excess, which is the same as direct runoff, which is the same as runoff depth. All of these different terms mean the same thing. And the reason there are so many terminologies is because it's, different different parts of the world use different terminologies, and then at different times people have come up with different terminologies. So now we are left with different people's different textbooks use these terms interchangeably. All of them are coming together, so it may look like it's a little bit confusing, but it's actually all the same process that we are describing. Okay, so now RD is known, P is known. What about delta T? What is delta T in this case? Now, if you remember, we solved a problem of maybe a couple of classes back where we use a trial and error method to estimate the phi index, right? In this particular problem, incidentally, I have two rainfall events over two consecutive 4-hour durations of 3.8 centimeters in the first 4 hours and 2.8 centimeters in the next 4 hours, right? Now, what my analysis so far is telling me is that my excess rainfall is greater than the rainfall received in any of the 4-hour durations. In the first 4 hours, you received 3.8 centimeters of rainfall. In the second 4 hours, you received 2.8 centimeters of rainfall, right? So the total excess rainfall that I've received, 5.52 centimeters, is greater than the rainfall received in both the durations, both the 4-hour durations, right? So therefore, my phi index must be less than okay, my phi index should be less than. I want somebody to answer this.
0.
Phi index must be less than 0. Why is that? I'm saying, okay, let me erase this, all of this stuff. Okay. This is a critical aspect that I want you all to understand. Okay. Just by looking at the magnitude of my excess rainfall, I'm able to tell you. Okay, so let us draw the rainfall hyetograph T, 0 to 4 hours and 4 to 8 hours. Right, this is the rainfall received. Okay, oops, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Oh. Are you able to see my screen now? Hello, you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So the first 4 hours, we received 3.8 centimeters of rainfall. Okay, just assume that it's coming and intersecting at the right point. Okay, in the next 4 hours, I received 2.8 centimeters of rainfall. Okay, so this is 3.8. This is 2.8. Okay, this is the total rainfall. So 3.8 plus 2.8, 6.6 centimeters of rainfall has been received. Out of this, we just now solved, I think it's 5.52 centimeters of runoff depth. Okay. So in the second 4 hours, 2.8 centimeters in 4 hours means the rainfall intensity must have been 0.7 centimeters per hour. Correct? This is 3.8. Huh? Okay. The first 4 hours, the rainfall intensity must have been 0.9 something, 0.95. Correct? In 4 hours, if I receive 3.8 centimeters of rainfall, the rainfall intensity must have been 0.9 something, 0.95, 0.95 centimeters per hour. In the second 4 hours, if I receive 2.8 centimeters, I must have received a rainfall intensity of 0.7 centimeters per hour. Okay. Now, if my phi index, right? So I have rainfall intensities I of 0.95 centimeters per hour and 0.7 centimeters per hour. If my phi index is greater than 0.7 centimeters per hour, for example, that would mean, what would that mean? If my phi index is greater than 0.7 centimeters per hour, that would mean only the first 4 hours contributed to the direct runoff, correct? Right? Let us say the phi index is exactly 0.7 centimeters per hour, which means only the first 1 hour contributed um, contributed to the runoff. The second 4 hours did not contribute anything. It contributed 0 direct runoff. Right? That is impossible. You see why it's impossible? Then it would only be 0.25 centimeters per hour for 4 hours. If my phi index was equal to 0.7 centimeters per hour, I would only get a runoff of at the rate of 0.25 centimeters per hour for 4 hours, which would mean 1 centimeter. But I have received 5.52 centimeters of excess of runoff, of excess rainfall. Okay. So therefore, it for sure, the phi index has to be less than 0.7 centimeters per hour, which means both the durations, both the 4 hours must contribute to the runoff. Right? So therefore, my delta T must be 8 hours. That's all I'm trying to establish. But you don't even have to do all these computations. Just by looking at the total excess rainfall. Total excess rainfall is 5.52 centimeters. Right? So in each duration, in each 4-hour duration, I have received less than 5.52 centimeters. So naturally, both the 4-hour durations must have contributed to the direct runoff. Right? So therefore, my delta T becomes 8 hours in that equation. So then I compute my phi index as, what is it? Phi index will be P minus RD divided by delta T. P is known 6.6 centimeters. RD is known 5.52 centimeters. Delta T is 8 hours. You put that in and then you get the answer of, let's see, 0.135 centimeters per hour. Okay, so that's the phi index. So we have solved this problem. Okay, any questions on this quickly? All right. So I want to, I've shared another maybe about 4 or 5 pages of reading material of how to estimate excess rainfall for so this one was a relatively simple problem statement. Okay, where you knew what this stream flow was, you separated the base flow, found out the direct runoff, and then estimated the phi index. Okay, suppose I give you a relatively more complex scenario. Okay, so if you go back and look at the notes, that will tell you how to solve this problem that I'm going to share now. Okay, but I think we have the background required to go through this entire problem. I'll go through this problem very, very quickly. I want you to understand the spirit of it, and then come back and look at the solution that is going to be there in the slide. But basically, I want you to understand the process. Okay, don't worry about the numbers. The numbers It's available in the textbook. I'll share the problem with you. You can walk through the problem statement and understand it, but understand the spirit of it. Okay. So in the previous problem, the stream flow was known and the rainfall was known, and you tried to find out what the runoff was or the excess rainfall was. Now here I'm going to have a different scenario. Okay. Here the rainfall is known and the kind of soil in the watershed is known, right? Then you're asked to find out what the excess rainfall would have been. Okay. Given the rainfall and the kind of soil. So you see, these are the different combinations of problems that you can come up with. One, I give you the stream flow and I give you the rainfall and ask you to find out the excess rainfall. Here, I give you the rainfall and give you the type of soil and ask you to find out the excess rainfall, right? So just look at the problem statement. Okay, so it gives you the time duration for the rainfall. So rainfall starts at 0 minutes and goes on for 180 minutes, 3 hours. And in every 10 minutes, how much incremental rainfall was received is given in this next column. Okay, so the incremental rainfall in every 10-minute duration is given, right? So which means between 0 and 10 minutes, 0.18 centimeters of rainfall was received. Between 10 and 20 minutes, another 0.21 centimeters of rainfall was received. Okay, it's not cumulative, it's incremental. Okay, between 20 and 30 minutes, 0.26 centimeters of rainfall was received. Between 30 and 40, 0.32 centimeters, and so on. Okay, so this is giving you the incremental rainfall in every 10 minutes. In every 10 minutes, how much rainfall was received? That is given in the second column. Okay, and the kind of soil is sandy loam soil. Okay, sandy loam soil of initial effective saturation of 40%. Okay, so remember I presented the table which was giving the different parameters for this different kinds of soils. So for the sandy loam soil, the hydraulic conductivity K is given 1.09 centimeters per hour. The suction potential is 11.01 centimeters, suction head or suction potential. Theta E, what is theta E? It's the effective porosity. The effective porosity is 0.412. And then the specific, the effective saturation 40% is given. So using that, I estimate delta theta, which is required for my Green-Amt equation, 1 minus SE into delta theta, theta E. This is all available. See, all of these equations are available in your previous lectures. I request you to please go back and look at them, and then you will understand exactly what's going on. Okay, so delta theta is 0.247. So if I know delta theta, I can compute psi times delta theta, which is 2.72 centimeters. So all of this information is known to you, and you are expected to find out the excess rainfall hyetograph. Okay, you're expected to find the excess rainfall hyetograph. So rainfall hyetograph is the actual rainfall hyetograph. Okay, excess rainfall hyetograph is the portion of the rainfall hyetograph which has been converted to runoff. Okay, so that's what the terminology means. Okay, so let's just quickly go through the solution. You will understand what I'm doing. Okay, I've just taken that incremental rainfall, that information that was given in the previous slide is given over here. I've just converted it into, I've converted it into cumulative rainfall in the third column and rainfall intensity in the fourth column. You understand what I've done here? 0.18 centimeters of rainfall in 10 minutes, right? So the cumulative rainfall is 0.18. The next 10 minutes, I receive a further 0.21 centimeters of rainfall. So the cumulative rainfall will be 0.18 plus 0.21, 0.39 centimeters of rainfall, and so on, all the way down. Okay. Then here I have the rainfall intensity. So in the first 10 minutes, if I have received 0.18 centimeters of rainfall, then the rainfall intensity must have been 0.18 centimeters divided by 10 minutes. Converted to hours, you will get 1.08 centimeters per hour. Okay. The next 10 minutes, I have received 0.21 centimeters of rainfall. So the rainfall intensity starting at time t equal to 10 minutes, and for the next 10 minutes, the rainfall intensity is 1.26 centimeters per hour. Okay, and so on. Okay, so these are all of this that's presented here is the rainfall intensity for every successive 10-minute interval. Okay, from time t equal to 170 minutes to time t equal to 180 minutes, the rainfall intensity is 1.02 centimeters per hour. Okay, so that's all given over here. I'll just take a couple of minutes and then we'll just go. So the next column, I'm going to present the infiltration rate and the infiltration centimeters per hour. Okay, so so what will be the cumulative infiltration at time t equal to 0? Anybody can answer that right now? What will be the cumulative infiltration at time t equal to 0?
0.
0. Very good. Okay, what will be the infiltration rate at time t equal to 0? If you remember the equation, it looks like this: F equal to K. What is that? This is the equation, but this equation is for some time t after the infiltration has started. At time t equal to 0, there's no way of estimating what the infiltration rate is. Theoretically, it's infinity, or it's a very large number. Okay, so we'll leave this blank. Okay, but remember, it's a very large number. Okay, very, very large number. So if it's a very large number at time t equal to 0, and my rainfall intensity is 1.08 centimeters per hour, what can you say about time of ponding? Has it happened or not yet happened?
Not yet happened.
Time of ponding has not yet happened, which means for the first 10 minutes, whatever rainfall is happening is going to be converted into infiltration. Ponding will not happen, right? So I can estimate how much is the cumulative infiltration at the end of 10 minutes. How much will it be? At the end of 10 minutes, F at t plus delta t equal to F of t plus I into delta t, right? Since ponding has not happened, all the rainfall, this rainfall intensity I multiplied by the duration has become cumulative infiltration, right? So cumulative infiltration at time t equal to 0 is known, it's 0. So F of t plus delta t, where delta t is 10 minutes, it will be 0 plus I into delta t. 0 plus I, what is I? 1.08 centimeters per hour. Multiplied by 10 minutes, you convert that to units, appropriate units. I'll just write down the answers, okay? So I'll get an answer of, it's very straightforward, 0.18 centimeters. It will be the same as this cumulative rainfall, right? Because none of it has become none of it has become runoff. So all the rainfall has become infiltration. Okay. Once I have this capital F, I can, oh, I'm sorry, this equation, I made a mistake. Can you point out the mistake?
F.
Yeah. So it should be capital F over there. Oops. Capital F over here. Okay. This denominator is capital F. Okay. Now, can I not solve for this small f? I have obtained K I've obtained capital F 0.1 centimeters per hour, 0.18. I know K, I know psi delta theta. You just saw that in the previous slide. I can solve for F, and the F comes to 17.57 centimeters per hour. Now look at the rainfall intensity, 1.26 centimeters per hour. The infiltration rate is greater than rainfall intensity. So therefore, next 10 minutes, no ponding, right? So all that rainfall will become infiltration. Okay, so it continues, and then we continue this process. Okay, I'll point out the time at which. Okay, I realize that we're out of time. We'll continue this on Thursday. Don't worry. So until what we've done today is going to be your. So this problem is a very complicated problem. Okay, but I'm trying to explain this in the context of infiltration and runoff. Okay, so it's not difficult, it's just complicated. You just have to keep track of all the steps. It's not difficult, it's straightforward. At every point, at every time instant, you just check if the rainfall intensity is greater than infiltration rate or not. If infiltration rate is greater than rainfall intensity, time of ponding has not yet happened. You keep solving this problem until you reach a point when your rainfall intensity is greater than your time of infiltration. At that point, you say time of ponding has happened. And then you have to compute your cumulative infiltration using a different formula. Simple, that's all. Nothing very fancy. Okay, we'll work on it in the next lecture. So until this, whatever we have covered today, is going to be the portion for your midterm examination. There will be a bunch of multiple choice questions, one word answers, or even one sentence answer. That kind of stuff will be there. True or false, those kinds of things will be there. But definitely there will also be problems that you'll have to solve by hand, take a photo of it and upload it to the portal. We are going to be using a portal. You'll come to know the information about that. It's fairly straightforward. Do not worry about this exam. I'm also equally worried about the exam as you guys must be, because it's the first time we are doing this. So don't worry about it. We'll make sure that it's a fair representation of your understanding, and the difficulty level will be appropriate. Okay. All right. So we will meet on Thursday. All the best, guys. All the best for what? We are anyway meeting on Thursday. Anyway, so take care. We'll meet on Thursday. Thank you. Okay. So if you have questions, you are free to email me as usual, or call me at any time. Thanks. Okay. Bye. Okay, there's a question in the chat window. 1 second. Afternoon class. Deepak, we've never had the afternoon class. Afternoon, you may have a surprise quiz. I don't know about that, but afternoon, usually we don't have the class. We only have the surprise quiz. All right. Okay. Thank you. I mean, usually we have a surprise quiz, or sometimes we have a surprise quiz. All right. Thank you.